Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for June 4th, 2025. Today, we're going to start with an article from the BYU newspaper that says, the Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center celebrated its grand opening in Ogden, Utah on May 22nd. The new center was built to meet the increasing demand for services that protect children from abuse in Weber and Morgan counties. Several organizations, including the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, donated to the cause. Church leaders toured the center on the day of the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Here are what Sister Amy A. Wright, first counselor in the primary general presidency, and President Emily Bell Freeman, Young Women General President, said at the event.
Children maybe aren't necessarily weak, but they are vulnerable. And we have a responsibility to be their advocates and their protectors. It's so important for us to remember how critical it is for all of us to stand against abuse.
I have so many questions about this. Do you think the people who run the center know how bad the church's track record is when it comes to abuse? Do they understand that the church corporation that is donating to them could use an overhaul in how it treats the victims of abuse within its ranks? Did they suggest providing advocates to run the phone lines of the helpline that the Mormon Church has set up for bishops to call when they find out about abuse? Because currently, if abuse is disclosed in an interview with a Mormon bishop, that bishop calls the helpline and is put in touch with a church-provided lawyer who then, more often than not, instructs the bishop not to report the abuse. I am glad the church is donating to this cause, and I think they could go even further and do a better job at making sure they aren't the ones providing safe places for children to be abused. Now let's go to the Moscow Times, where it says, Russia added Brigham Young University to its list of undesirable organizations, exposing anyone affiliated with them to potential criminal charges. No explanation was provided by the Prosecutor General's office or the Justice Ministry for the designation, which was published on the ministry's website on Monday. BYU was officially blacklisted on April 29th, according to the entries. The designation bars the private American university from operating in Russia. Under Russian law, individuals found to be affiliated with undesirable organizations face up to 4 years in prison, while organization leaders risk up to 6 years. Brigham Young University, based in Utah and sponsored by the Mormon Church, offers an undergraduate degree in Russian studies. Now, this makes me wonder if the announced/prophesied Russian Mormon temple will ever actually be built, or if Russell Nelson was simply speaking as a man, not an agent of God, when he announced it. If we go to churchofjesuschristtemples.org, it says, President Russell M. Nelson made the historic announcement of Russia's first temple at the end of his closing remarks at the 188th Annual General Conference. No city was named as part of the announcement, only that it would be constructed in a major city yet to be determined. While serving as an apostle, President Nelson himself organized the first stake in Russia in the capital city of Moscow on June 5, 2011, in the 20th anniversary year of the church being officially recognized by the Russian government. There are over 23,000 members of the church in Russia organized into 3 stakes and 10 districts. Notice that in that paragraph it says that the church has 23,000 members. That is the number they claimed in a 2018 news release. If we go to Wikipedia, it says missionary efforts were impacted by the 2016 Yarovaya law, which prohibited proselytizing outside of official church property. Current membership statistics are not available for Russia, but the church reported 19,946 members in 2009. So in 2009, the church reported almost 20,000 members in Russia, and in 2018, they reported 23,000 members in Russia. Now let's get to the church's official website as of today. The church's official website says there are 18,132 members in Russia. They are admitting that Russia now has roughly 5,000 less members than it did in 2018. Interesting. I would bet money that some pro-LDS person is going to happen upon this video and say, those 5,000 people just moved somewhere else, which is the comment I get the absolute most when I say the church is shrinking in any area. If you come here and say that, I will need you to show me exactly where all the people have gone because, while I can see stakes and wards getting combined and getting smaller, I have yet to see the boom that should be happening elsewhere if those folks didn't leave the church but simply moved to a different ward. Now let's go to the Salt Lake Tribune, where it says, President Russell M. Nelson, the 100-year-old leader of the 195-year-old Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, will be on hand June 8th for the dedication of the Syracuse Temple in northern Utah. His dedicatory prayer, however, will be pre-recorded. That follows a pattern of the most recent dedications Nelson has participated in, church officials confirmed Monday, including the Manti Temple rededication in April 2024 and Tooele's Deseret Peak Temple dedication in November. The centenarian religious leader also attended in person the Faith's closing session of April General Conference, where his sermon was also pre-recorded. A news release Monday announced that the prophet president will be accompanied to Syracuse on the east shore of the Great Salt Lake in Davis County by Apostle Quentin L. Cook. The dedication will take place at 4 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time and will be broadcast to local meeting houses within the Temple District, the release stated. The ceremony will then be rebroadcast to those meeting houses at 7 that night. Okay, I am starting to wonder if he's making the choice to attend these events or if his handlers, one of which I am sure is his current wife, are making those choices for him. If he is well enough to decide to go, then more power to him. But if he is being paraded around by other people, that seems pretty gross to me. It is obvious that he is not always well enough to give a speech, or they would have him do it live. Regarding Russell Nelson, a thoughtful listener tipped me off to an LDS Living article that pulls back the curtain a little on how he was initially called as an apostle, a path that eventually led him to become the prophet he is today. The article first states, "The following is an adapted excerpt from Insights from a Prophet's Life, Russell M. Nelson, by Sherry Dew." So the following information is coming to us via Russell Nelson and Sherry Dew. It says, on January 11th, 1983, Elder LeGrand Richards of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles passed away. With April General Conference less than 3 months away, members looked forward to the calling of a new apostle. The call of a man to fill a vacancy in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles is the responsibility and prerogative of the president of the church. Only he has the authority to receive revelation about whom the Lord has prepared and selected for that high and holy calling. During the months preceding conference, President Spencer W. Kimball's health had become increasingly frail and his memory spotty. To the disappointment of many, the April 1983 General Conference came and went without a call to the 12 announced. My thoughts? He should have been released and allowed to spend his remaining days in peace. Back to the article from LDS Living. As the October 1983 General Conference approached, speculation again mounted that this time surely the vacancy in the 12 would be filled. But again, there was disappointment. No one was called. Conference came and went for a second time with an empty seat in the quorum. Then on January 11th, 1984, a year to the day after the passing of Elder Richards, Elder Mark E. Peterson of the 12 passed away. Now there were 2 vacancies in the 12, and if anything, the situation was more critical. President Kimball's health had deteriorated even further, and his mind was less dependable. To make matters worse, those privy to the situation knew President Kimball was in no condition to receive the revelation to extend such calls. One of those persons, surprise, surprise, was Dr. Nelson, the same Russell Nelson who's now the prophet. The article then says, the week before the April 1984 General Conference, Russell's surgical nurse, Jan Curtis, mentioned how excited she was for the upcoming conference because 2 new apostles would be called. Russell tried to gently tell her that it wasn't going to happen. I was his doctor and I knew it wasn't feasible, that President Kimball was not well or coherent enough to do it. I explained to her that calling an apostle is the prerogative of the president of the church, and that President Kimball was simply in no condition to do that. For months, President Gordon B. Hinckley, the only healthy member of the first presidency at the time, President Marion G. Romney's health had also deteriorated, had left standing instructions with President Kimball's caregivers that if the prophet's mind ever cleared, they were to call him immediately, regardless of the hour. Month after month passed with no call. From time to time, President Hinckley looked in on President Kimball, but an opportunity to discuss such a spiritually sensitive topic as calls to the 12 never presented itself. Okay, another interjection. How is this not a wake-up call for the system to be changed so these men can retire instead of staying in those jobs literally until they die? Back to the article. Then at about 2:30 a.m. on the Wednesday morning prior to the April 1984 General Conference, the phone rang at President Hinckley's home. President Kimball was alert and wanted to talk to him. President Hinckley rushed downtown to President Kimball's suite in the Hotel Utah, where the issue of vacancies in the 12 was raised. President Kimball said simply, "Call Nelson and Oakes to the Quorum of the 12, in that order." 2 days later on Friday morning, President Hinckley summoned Dr. Nelson from the regional representative seminar that was in progress. He asked Russell just one question: "Is your life in order?" When Russell responded that it was, President Hinckley replied, "Good, because tomorrow we are presenting your name to be sustained as one of the 12 apostles." Are we believing this miracle story? Do we really think that Spencer Kimball became coherent just long enough for Gordon Hinckley to race to his bedside and hear the names of two men, one of which was the man who had previously operated on Spencer Kimball's heart? Are we believing this? Let me know in the comments. Now let's go to Rexburg, Idaho, where Becca and Spencer attempted missionary work through Tinder. Here is a picture of their profile that says, "Not interested in dating. We're a married couple looking to see if anyone wants to come to church with us. We figure if you're on Tinder, you might need a little extra Jesus in your life. This is a real offer. Come with us." Because I did not see this profile on Tinder with my own eyes, I cannot verify that it is legit. However, I was able to find Becca and Spencer online, and they are a real couple who are real Mormons who are actually married and now have a baby. Now I want to share something amusing that happened to me recently. I got the following text that said, "Hi there, I'm Emma Smith. I came across an opportunity that seems to fit your background. Interested in discussing?" I knew this was a scammer, but I couldn't help myself, so I replied, "Are you married to Joseph? Because if you are, I have to know if you actually pushed Eliza down the stairs. I have to know." And then they said this: "We are on the lookout for applicants. Only 60 to 120 minutes. Make 200 to 600 daily." Before sharing details, requirement: are you 25 or 25 plus and have a valid SSN? No need to provide your SSN. Just only answer yes or nah. To which I replied, "I will straight give you my social security number right now if you're the real Emma and you answer my question." Sadly, they stopped responding after that. Which brings me to the question though, if you could ask Emma Smith one question and she had to answer honestly, what would it be? And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, "Every time you live your truth, you free an ancestor who was forced to hide theirs." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.